Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today I'm speaking with the founder of Love Ocean, Gabi Jennings. Now, Love Ocean is a bathroom product brand with sustainability at its heart. Not only are all their products packed full of natural marine ingredients, but once you've bought one of their bottles, which are all made of recycled plastic, you're then encouraged to refill them on subscription. The brand has launched with a children's range in a very striking whale tail shaped bottle, perfect for Christmas stockings, I might say. So it's definitely worth you checking out their brand. Now, before Gabi set up Love Ocean, she spent 20 years as a brand and beauty specialist, working for organisations including Harpers Bazaar, Youx, and Conde Naste. So she certainly knows lots about how to get brands out there. And to date, Gabi has raised a total of around £600,000 to help her grow Love Ocean and is now on a critical path to scale the brand even further. So let's meet Gabi and find out what her fundraising journey has been like so far. So welcome, Gabi.
Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to see you. So Little Bird told me that you were once really afraid of swimming in the sea. So I'm really intrigued to hear all about that, because obviously your brand is all about the ocean. So tell me, is this true?
Yeah, no, it is. I used to be really afraid of swimming sort of in the sea out of my depth. And I met my husband who lived on the Isle of Wight and found myself sort of in and around the sea quite a lot. So eventually had to sort of face my fear, as it were. So I sort of one day got into the water and just forced myself really to sort of overcome the fear I had. And it was just a really pivotal moment for me, sort of personally, really, just in terms of, addressing a fear and sort of pushing through it and overcoming it. It sort of adjusted my mindset completely, I think, to what actually is possible if you just really face those fears. So yeah, fear of the ocean turned into a love of the ocean, and hence the sort of inspiration behind the brand, really. So yeah, it's been an interesting relationship with the sea.
Yeah, and a very good analogy for entrepreneurship, I would think. It is, when are we ever not out of our depth as entrepreneurs? It's all
that sort of resilience piece, really, and just sort of facing fears and sort of doing it anyway, I think.
Okay, so you fell in love with the ocean, but I'm intrigued. Okay, 20 years kind of working for some super sexy publishing brands, beauty brands. What made you want to take this leap into the ocean and set up your own product brand?
Yeah, I think, I had spent a long time helping brands communicate or turn really product messages into emotive storytelling and helping them to connect with consumers in a way that would, set them apart from their competitors. So, and obviously we're able to do that through those publishing brands using our editorial expertise, using our amazing content team. So I had really sort of been on this journey through my career of just watching incredible stories coming out of products and brands. And it was just something that really, really struck me that, actually brands tend to start with the product development and then sort of try and pin a story onto it after. And actually, I just felt there was a real place for doing it the other way around. And actually just starting with that storytelling and starting with that communication piece and then creating the product sort of off the back of that. So yeah, it was something that I was really interested in, just sort of flipping the model slightly. And obviously most people that come to these type of businesses, these direct to consumer product businesses, quite often come from a product development background. So to start from the sort of marketing and branding side and work back from that, it was quite a sort of different approach, I think. And for me, looking at, I worked within adult beauty, and the market was hugely saturated. And as much as I sort of longed potentially to have my own beauty brand, as not somebody, not being somebody who's come from a big beauty company and worked in formulation, I didn't feel that I had enough of a USP to kind of try and sort of move into adult beauty. But the kids market for me was just wide open. There hadn't really been a huge amount of innovation in the category since really the launch of Child's Farm. I remember Matey from when I was a child.
I was thinking about Matey. I mean, that bottle just will stick in my mind until the day I die.
Absolutely. And that was what was so fascinating when I actually met Karen Wellman, who is, the co-founder of a big branding agency, Pearl Fisher. And, her and I got together and I just said, look, we need a new Matey. This is what, and she got absolutely on board with it. And her and I kind of got to work on, creating this iconic piece of packaging. So, really there were sort of two big things suddenly that were creating, I thought, quite a sort of special and unique proposition for the market, which was this idea around kind of content first. And the second was around kind of a really unique piece of packaging, which would give us that kind of point of difference, really.
Yeah, so much innovation in what you do. And then, but as you say, you didn't come from a product background. So you've got this idea, you've got this concept, this really cool design for the bottle. How do you get this business off the ground, and what did that take from you from an investment perspective? Did you start this with some of your own money? Tell me about the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I started to sort of piece the idea together whilst I was still doing a global sort of beauty role for Conde Naste, and it was just sort of bubbling away in the background. And for me, what happened was I started to really sort of delve into my network, and people started coming up out of my network that were the people that I needed to speak to move things forward. So I think, I was at a point where I was like, gosh, I don't know anyone who knows how to make a product. I don't know how to do anyone. And actually, after a few conversations, suddenly I realized that actually there were these sort of connections. So that really is how it started to move forward. And then I was sort of doing things like paying for some product packaging drawings, for instance. I was paying for the odd bits of consultancy from different people to come in and do a little bit of work, and really at that stage it was just like paying out the minimum amount that I could just to see whether there was something there or not. Because you get to the point where then you need to go and speak to someone like Pearl Fisher, and you need to have enough of the bones of an idea that they're going to take you seriously, but without spending so much that when you get into that position and someone says, no, this is a rubbish idea, do not move any further with this. You haven't wasted too much time and money in the process, But I mean, I was really fortunate that, for me, I got validation of the concept quite early, which from Karen at Pearl Fisher, and she said, you're on something here and we want to get behind it. We want to help you. So I knew at that point that if they thought there was something in it, then I felt confident enough that I should start to sort of really progress it, start to spend a bit more money. So yeah, initially, I put a bit of my own money into it. The irony was that I decided to step away from my role at Conde Nast, at which point my role suddenly was about to be made redundant because they were moving it over to the US. So I actually, at that point, got a redundancy package from Conde Naste, which couldn't have been better timing.
So aligned for you, Gabi.
I mean, there were some real serendipity moments, definitely, through this process. And I think, when you speak to all founders, there are these moments that sort of give you a bit of a kick, really, to okay, this is right. Things are working in my favor here. I should move ahead with this. So that was one of those moments, and that really gave me the initial lump of capital to do things like start the product development process. So there were just those little cash injections that came at just the right moment that just moved it on that next step. It was gradual to begin with.
Yeah. Okay, so pivotal moments. The universe is sending you great messages.
Absolutely.
So how long was it then before you thought, I'm I'm going to probably need to go and get some external funding to help me on this journey?
At the point that I met Realise Capital, who are my finance partners, and we started to really sort of pull the numbers together, it became very quickly apparent that I was going to need quite a substantial capital injection at the beginning to get it off the ground. I think in my case, again, I always think of this as being, again, another really pivotal moment, because the whale tail bottle, most people, you know, which I think is right and smart, is you sort of do what you can to get a minimal viable product together to get it to market, just to see whether there's, you know, traction. But I couldn't do that because the real, you know, basis of my concept was this idea that if we invest in the packaging design, people won't just use it once and throw it away. So if I had put my product into a cheap piece of off-the-shelf packaging, my whole brand concept would have fallen apart. So for me, you know, and I think, again, this is where the benefit sometimes of not working in the industry in product development, because you would have such an awareness of the risks around packaging development, you know, doing something bespoke. Whereas because I'd never been in that situation, it was kind of, I was like this sort of, you know, sort of blinkered, you know, and I went into my first packaging meeting, and the packaging manufacturers said, you know, to make this bottle, you're going to have to pay for a tool to be made. And if this business, if no one picks this up, you've invested all this money and you don't. So everybody within the industry tried to talk me out of doing things like making a bespoke piece of packaging. And so because that in itself just needed so much upfront cash. And obviously then what you're doing is you're going out to investors without any market validation at all. And you're just asking them to invest in a basically in a PowerPoint presentation. So that was really challenging. And I think even now looking back, I mean, I couldn't have done it any differently. You know, I couldn't, because I couldn't have got that bottle made without going through that tooling process and having all of that money up front.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the way, I guess, with any business that requires that kind of capital investment at the start, whether it's a big tech piece or a product development piece, or investing in serious kind of research and development or IP, you're selling the dream, aren't you? At this point in the podcast, I just want to take a quick moment to talk with you directly about something that I think is really going to help you if you're thinking about raising investment. One of the favourite parts of what I do is talking with the amazing female founders on this podcast, hearing their success stories that honestly inspires me to do what I do. Now, the unfortunate truth is that when it comes to raising investment to grow and scale our businesses, the success stories of women are far and few between when compared to male founders. Call it what you want, but we are calling it out. My brand new book, Raise, The Female Founder's Guide to Securing Investment, applies the thousands of female founders' experiences that I've worked alongside, combined with the 5 key steps to raising investment that I teach our clients at Enter the Arena. And it's specifically tailored to the female founder experience. The reason I wrote this book is to help level the playing field for you, providing you with all the vital information you need to know before, during, and even after securing an investor. So my fellow female founders, it is time to armour yourself, get clued up, and get your business taking flight. You can get the book on Amazon, just type in Raise, The Female Founder's Guide to Securing Investment, and you'll be able to find it there. Right, back to the podcast. But when you know, in terms of raising money at that point, how did you substantiate the dream in terms of your evidence that the market wanted what you had got? How did you have any data?
I mean, I think that it really was, I mean, one of the things that I did, which everyone again told me I was mad, is we created a brand film, and that was our product, you know, and it cost quite a bit of money. And it was all about, you know, working my network and finding a partner that would sort of make us a film, you know, and we did that. And the film, in a way, it just told the story so brilliantly that it just captured people's imagination. And from an investor perspective, I think what it showed was that, you know, it looked really professional, the film. So again, it sort of gave us almost, it felt like a bit of a product in a way. And everybody said, you know, why are you making a film? That's ridiculous. You know, you don't need and I said, honestly, just watch, you know. And I think that was how we got a lot of the traction. And I think, you know, and obviously then really it's about, as the founder, really being able to effectively communicate your vision and effectively communicate how you've pieced together this concept that's going to fill a void in the market that you're approaching. And as long as you can effectively communicate that, you know, that's how you get that sort of buy-in. You know, that is my sort of experience with it, I think. In fact, I think founder passion is such a big thing. Like, people see that you're really determined and really passionate. You know, I think that is it. Just I think it in a way it's kind of inspires the investors. They want to get behind you and help you, you know.
Totally. I mean, actually, you know, what you've talked about there is that kind of big picture vision selling and the power of storytelling and the power of a narrative, but also the trust that you obviously built in those discussions with investors because you had done it also professionally. And I think that is so important and a really interesting way to look at it. When you're at that early stage, nobody can say, well, let's have a look at your performance and your stats, because you don't have any. So all you can do is sell the dream. But things change then later, once you've got the business out the door and the conversations about the mechanics of the business start to come to the fore.
Yeah.
So clearly, you know, given your background, you've got lots of strength in that brand stuff, the storytelling. So let's talk about the other side of raising investment. Another big part of the prep is around finance and the numbers. So how did you feel about all that side of it? How did that piece go?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the area that I felt really out of my depth in. And I did quite early in the process find some financial partners to help me and to support me in that. And so we spent a lot of time, you know, talking through, you know, sort of how I saw the business building out over the next sort of 1 to 5 years. And then I would feed all the costs and the financials into them, and then they would then pulled it into a model for me. They also did a lot of work with me around sort of practice investor pitches. They did a lot of work with me around, you know, top tips, like if you're asked this question, you know, we did some sort of practice around that. So that helped. I think that the sort of main bit of advice I was given, which really I had to sort of try and keep at the sort of forefront within all conversations, is don't try and blag your way through a financial answer. You know, it's never going to work. And I am the ultimate salesperson, so I'm the ultimate blagger in a lot of situations. And you know, they just said, look, you know, no one's expecting you to be able to answer every question. You know, you can say, I actually don't know the answer to that. Can I set up a follow-up call with my financial advisors? You know, and so that was really, you know, because I think there was an expectation, I had an expectation that if an investor asked me a question, I should know it. I should know exactly how to answer it. And the reality is that I don't come from a financial background, you know, and, you know, investment financials are really complex. You know, and how investors see financial models is very different. Every investor will ask different questions. Every investor will want to see different things within a financial model. So, and I think that's where so now I've learned, luckily not through bad experience, but it's better just to leave it to the experts, get some experts to help you, and then just you know, bring them in at the point where the questions start to get a bit too difficult.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you know, absolutely critical that you have a really good financial model. And yeah, how, who's going to expect you to know how to build it? As long as you're able to explain it to investors and understand the assumptions behind it, I think that's the most important thing. I think it can be dangerous where people just outsource the whole thing
Yeah.
and aren't able to talk an investor through it, which, is can get you in
Yeah,
real.
I mean, we have sort of weekly meetings, and sort of it's things for me, like I always ask for, we call it like a cheat sheet. So I'll work with the financial guys to pull together a cheat sheet, which will have like, okay, and I've worked really hard with them to be like, okay, what is the base knowledge that I need to have of this model, and we work together to make sure that I've got that information to hand and I can memorize it, or I can have it next to me when I'm having those conversations. And obviously the really obvious things around your cost of goods and understanding kind of what your margins are and all of that sort of thing is top line. But anything more in depth than that, I really don't feel confident in answering that. So that's when I would take a step back and maybe set up a follow-up call, or offer to send over a financial model for them to have a look at, that kind of thing.
Okay. So you've done one sort of major round, and I know you're in the middle of another one now. So first round, you raised about 400,000.
Yeah.
Which you did through a mixture of friends and family and then crowdfunding. And you had a valuation of 2 million. So which is great. So how did you find it kind of having those discussions about valuation with friends and family, or the sort of early investors that came in on that crowdfunding round?
Yeah, I think, obviously friends and family, we didn't go into too much depth around valuation. Within the friends and family network, there were definitely a few sort of professional investors. I think what I learned really early on is also that the valuation is subjective. There is no black and white to a valuation. It's about a collection of information. It's about looking at other businesses in the same position. It's about looking at sort of the value of the business that you're potentially building. Obviously, there are so many sort of information points that feed into that valuation. And I think, again, it comes back to preparation and just, really having your bullet points of why you feel that your valuation is right at that level. And, I think one of the interesting experiences that I had very early in the process, I actually did have a conversation with an ex-VC guy who was also a private investor himself. And, his when we got to the valuation slide, he actually laughed and said, "What on earth makes you think your business is worth 1.9 million?" And it absolutely floored me. I think I'd never been really challenged on it before, and I had done so much preparation around, well, it's because of this and because of that. But actually, it was so, in some ways, his tone and the way he approached it felt very aggressive, which now I know is normal. And actually, when you get into a VC environment, when you get into institutional investment rounds, that's when you step into the ring, right, around your valuation. But I'd never done it before. So, I ended up actually sort of, as much as I thought I was being quite punchy, and I thought, I'm a salesperson, and I've been in these, I'm used to being in these difficult situations. What actually happened was that at the end, he sort of gave me some feedback to say that he actually just said to me, look, if you think your business is worth that much, then back yourself. I can tell you that it's not, but if you believe that it is, you need to tell me that. Like, you need to apologize to me about you thinking that your business is worth that much, because if you don't think it is, then why have you put it at that valuation? And it was really I came away from that sort of with a completely different understanding of that. And actually, again, whether that's a male female thing, and whether but now I know that I now feel much more confident in that situation if I'm challenged on my valuation, to just give all the reasons why I believe that it is worth that much. With an understanding that I can never be wrong. We can agree to disagree, and we may not reach an agreement in terms of with investing in the business, but I can still stand my ground. I can still hold my view that my business is worth that much, until I get a lot of people telling me that it's not, and not getting any investment, so yeah, at that, that stage I had already secured investment. So again, it's like, once you've secured investment at that level, that also, it's now I understand, it's like, well, then you back yourself, have more confidence in. But yeah, there's all these sort of, I think, lack of experience is a huge problem sometimes, I think, going into these situations.
I mean, there's a lot to get your head around, isn't there? And you can get caught on the back foot by somebody asking you a question like that in quite an aggressive way. I mean, I do wonder, would he have asked you in the same way if you were a guy? How much of that is some kind of, male ego testing, pushing? I do wonder about that.
Yeah.
But it is, and then you shouldn't have to feel like you should have to defend it, because once you're being asked a question where you feel like you're on the defensive, again, that is such a common thing that happens with female founders. And then it's so easy for you to crumble, and then all their preconceived ideas about female founders come true.
Yeah, and I think it's that moment of just not having that financial confidence.
Yeah.
Not coming from a financial career background. You immediately, almost, there's a part of me that sort of feels like I'm not really, I'm not qualified to talk about financials,
But in a way, kind of valuation in my mind is not, I mean, of course it does come under the umbrella of financials, but it's about what you said earlier. It's about what you're worth.
Yeah.
You believe you're worth it. And actually valuation at this stage is not really about financials. It's about the vision and the storytelling and all of that stuff, right? So I think, again, we get into our heads about the fact that it's finance, I don't understand it, I'm not but the whole piece about confidence is fascinating, isn't it? And what do you how have you felt your confidence grow as you've gone through your fundraisers?
Yeah, definitely. And I just, it's like, I always compare it back to when I started working in sales. When you first go out, and I used to work in advertising for magazines, and when you first go out and you're pitching your title, your magazine title, there, your knowledge is like that. You've read all the presentations, you've read the magazine, but and then after sort of 5 years, I mean, you can do it with your eyes closed, and you can pull out these incredible facts about the magazine's history and why people should advertise with it. And I think that's always how I've looked at this process. It's like, initially I'd never spoken to an investor before in my life up until 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So, but the more I do it, even when they don't go as well as I'd hoped, or, even if I don't get the investment, or at the moment, even if I get the same feedback, which is, you're too early, come back and see us in 6 months, or, every one of those conversations is just helping to just build the experience, and I know that, like, every one of those I've learned something. So even like now, now there are, VCs that I speak to, I know they're not going to offer me investment at the end of the conversation. But again, for me, it's about every time I speak to them, I feel like I just get a bit of extra information, or, I'm just getting a bit of understanding of what they're looking for, or how I would approach it, in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. So it's just putting yourself constantly in the situation where you're learning and just gathering information,
I mean, you're out of your comfort zone on all of it most of the time, aren't you? I mean, and all the stuff you've got to have right, business strategy, you've got to get your financials right, the communication piece, meetings with investors, negotiation. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah. And actually, I tend to have been doing a bit of networking and going to some other events and listening to kind of successful female founders talking, and what's terrifying / encouraging is that even I was at an event recently, and there was a really successful founder there who was raising 10 million, and she had months left in terms of her cash runway, and she was given a term sheet and she had to reject it. And I was like, well, firstly, what's a term sheet? I was thinking, God, I'm going to write that down and ask someone about that. And then secondly, I was like, how can you be at a level where you're raising 10 million and you're still having to turn down investment. Or, you know, she basically said that she had this terrible meeting and these guys were trying to take from her, you know, and I'm like, well, that, because I would expect someone by the time they've reached that point, they're like absolutely killing it and they know exactly what they're doing. And she was just saying, but you don't, you're throwing these curveballs, you know, and you have to figure them out and work out the next step. And
also every investment round is quite different. You know, friends and family round, very different from a crowdfunding round, very different from a private funded round, very different from a VC round. You know, every time there's it's like a whole new level
that
you're in.
And I would say actually that, you know, the crowdfunding element for me, the biggest piece of that, obviously apart from it's a good way to raise money at this stage of business, is the institutional approach of the crowdfunding businesses. You know, the due diligence that you go through, the compliance process, the legal process, because, you know, you have to have everything locked down. You have to have your T's crossed and your I's dotted. And if you don't, they won't let you onto the platform. They won't let you close your round. They won't. So, and I think from you know, that, I really believe it gives you some really good insight and experience into what will come if you end up at a point where you're scaling and you're working with big institutions, because I can see how that would be a hugely daunting process once you've managed to secure VC investment. Then that whole due diligence process and compliance and legal is really, you know, it's huge and hugely overwhelming, you know, particularly if you're, you know, really a small team and you're a sole female founder, I think.
Yeah, a lot to get your head around.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think in terms of, you know, if we're looking at getting more female founders to raising investment and scaling their businesses, what is it you think that is really needed in the industry, you know, to support those female founders and get their confidence levels up, get them skilled in all these things? How can we make that happen?
I think there just needs to be more accessible coaching and mentoring. You know, I think the big thing is you can't be what you can't see. And I know we talk about this a lot, you know, sort of digging around, really looking for other female founders, you know, in a similar position or, you know, who have gone on and done great things. I mean, there are obviously, you know, there are lots of them, but they're not necessarily hugely accessible. Like you can't just sort of drop them an email or, you know, and I think the more you can be around people that have done what you're trying to do, the more insight and confidence and support you can get. It's, you know, it's really hard when you don't have that. And I think coaching is amazing, but when you're in startup phase of your business, you know, we don't have the budget to be able to spend, you know, hundreds and hundreds of pounds on coaching every month, you know. So yeah, I think that, you know, if there could be just more accessible more accessible coaching, more affordable coaching, you know, that would really help. I think really help.
And, you know, it's something that we certainly learn over the years. I mean, I just, you know, in my dreams, there would be more government funding to support this kind of stuff. And, you know, at Entity Arena, we're a coaching and advisory business. And it is expensive to work with us one-on-one because it's really, really intensive. And it's one of the reasons we launched our fundraising academy a few years ago, which is, you know, predominantly online with some group coaching to make it accessible. But we've had to subsidize it, you know, and we continue to subsidize that program to get more female founders through it, because, you know, if we were doing it at probably a more market rate, it would be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying our hardest to do it, but it does frustrate me that there's not more kind of grants for you know, for kind of skills development.
Yeah.
You know, we can get funding grants, but no grants that will help you develop the skills that you need to go out there and do it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's a huge investment, you know, for a coaching business, because I think that once you are into that and you have, you know, experienced the support of that coaching network, you know, you're going to keep that going. So when you're a successful, you know, business owner or female founder, you're going to want to keep that in place. So actually, it's almost like future tense, that there would be a payback, because at the point when you can afford it, you would do it, you would keep doing it, because it's supported you all the way through that journey.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest with you, even just you sharing your story in this podcast, that's massive, because you've got then hundreds of other female founders listening to you talking and kind of thinking, well, I can do it,
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. It's really much appreciated.
Yeah.
All right, so what's going to be happening next week? So you're in the middle of a round now, which sounds like it's coming up to being closed, which is great. How's it going?
Yeah, no, it's this is a sort of follow-on round. So we did our initial round. We've had some great retail success. So we are now in Selfridges, Ocado, Boots.com, and with conversations with another really big retailer, which is looking likely to go live beginning of next year. So really now for us, this investment is critical, because it's about, firstly, having that cash runway to be able to continue to operate the business, to see that growth and scale start to happen within the retail channel. But also it's about having the money now to be able to really drive the awareness and really be able to market the brand, and get those sales in, and get that revenue growth in. So yeah, this is a critical time for us. And the great thing is that having those big retailer names on board, it really validates the concept. We may not be showing the revenue yet, which is always hard, and I think we have these huge expectations of what our businesses are going to turn over in the first 6 to 12 months, and from everyone I've spoken to, it's never where you think it's going to be, and so therefore there's a lot of managing expectations with your investors. But obviously the reassurance is there based on the fact that we have secured our channel to scale the business. It's going to now take a bit of time for that actually to happen. So yeah, it's really critical. So I hope to have this round tied up by the end of November. The other thing about this process is that it's really time consuming, and when you're trying to operate and run a business, and you're dealing with big retailers, and you've got a whole supply chain to manage, and trying to really get the brand out into the world, using your network to kind of, get marketing and PR. When you're fundraising at the same time, it's really hard, because the fundraising takes so much of your, I think actually it's a lot of energy, right, as well. Oh my god, I mean, this is just reminding me of something that one of my team members used to say to me when we were, because it felt like with my last business we were always raising money. Right. And lovely Lizzie, I don't know if Lizzie's listening, she used to always say, do you remember Dory from Finding Nemo? Yeah. Just keep swimming, and it makes me think with your brand and Love Ocean, and this, when we started this story, swimming out of your depth, that's all you can do, isn't it? That's all you can do, Gabi, is you just keep swimming. It is, and you're out of your depth, and you've got to hope that that is actually a sort of Caribbean island that you can see on the other side. That belief is so important. It's just, even when you're getting no's and your money's running out, and it's just holding on to that. I really believe that this is going to work. I really believe it. And you have to have that. And that it's, if you don't have that when those conversations are happening, that is when the magic happens, when people see your passion and belief in this business, and sometimes you think you'd be absolutely mad, and you're looking at the numbers, and you're looking and going, oh my god, I just can't even see how this is gonna, it's like you just have to move that to one side and say, nope, I'm just not going to look at that. I'm going to just believe that it's all going to be fine, so I think that for me has been really that, just really holding that, like I really believe that this is going to be what I think it's going to be. We'll keep holding on to that belief, keep swimming, and I'm sure you will get there. Thank you so much, Gabi, for sharing your story, and I wish you all the very best of luck with Love Ocean. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.